3.7 has been around for a while. Abyss has already reset once. The Al-Haytham Kazuha banner rerun has been out, and Flow 12 of the Abyss has been pretty difficult. So I made this guide to inform you free-to-play or low-spender average investment players to find the best way to get as much stars as possible for this quote-unquote hardest Abyss. So let's start things off with Chamber 1. So 12-1 for the first half, we have 2 waves of Pyro and Cryo Whopper Flowers, of which they spawn roughly at the middle. Generally, this section, you can use characters like Kazuha, or like CC anymore characters like Kazuha, Sucrose, or Venti, to just group them all together, do a lot of damage and get everything done. But if you don't have any crowd control abilities, what you want to do is you want to start the challenge and go all the way towards the back, like go completely south. That's one strategy a lot of people have been doing. Or alternatively, if you were to turn southwest, like roughly the 7 to 8 o'clock region, there should be like this pillar outside of the floor. Head roughly to that direction, but don't go all the way to the edge, just stand on the line so that the Whopper Flowers will teleport to you and they'll be right in front of you. And once that's done, just kill the first wave, and then once the first wave is done, get the second wave to teleport to you, and once you've taken care of that, you can move on to the next few robots. So we have 6 robots of the desert robots from the Sumeru Desert, and each of them is a fixed type. We have the Pylon, we have the Shield guy, and then we have the Short Range Laser guy. So the first wave will spawn more towards like the back area. If you don't have any of these Anemo crowd control characters, what you can do is you can probably get close to the Pylon robot, because the laser robot is always on the right side, the absolute right side of the entire wave. So he will try to approach you because you will be out of his attack range. And then once they get closer together, make sure you wipe them all out at once before they enter the invisibility phase, because once they do enter the invisibility phase, they will gain a really high damage reduction unless you break their parts. If things don't work, just retry. You have the liberty to just do that anytime you want to get the best time possible. And after you take care of the first wave, the second wave will spawn forward. Once again, use the same strategy. Go to the absolutely left side of the robots, get them all to group together, and take care of every single one of them. The one unique thing about this floor compared to the previous Abyss is that killing a single enemy will spawn the next one within that lineup. So you do want to try your best to wipe them all in waves all at the same time. If not, it might screw up your rotation, the positioning, and maybe your timing. So yeah, feel free to retry as much as you want. Other than that, that's all there is for the first half. And now let's go move on to the second half. So the second half has the Hydro and Cryo Abyss Mage, which will spawn mostly in front. You can either choose to go to the front and deal with them immediately, or you can go all the way to the back. Regardless, as long as you stay within the center area, whether it be north or south, it should be fine. Just break their shields, and after they are taken care of, you have 2 Cryo Heralds and 1 Hydro Herald. So generally, my strategy is that I like to start the challenge, go all the way south, like all the way to like 6 o'clock, and then let both mages like spawn right next to each other. So I would use my abilities to try to break their shields at the same time, and I can kill them both at the same time as fast as possible so that we can move on to the Heralds. And once the Heralds spawn, both Cryo Heralds are roughly in sync, so you can probably head all the way back. You just have to be mindful of their attacks. Other than that, it's quite rough, mostly because sometimes when they are not in sync, the Heralds has a chance to basically freeze you, constantly knock you back, and just wipe a single character, thus ruining the run. So to be honest, if you can't pass this area, feel free to retry, and yeah, just honestly hope for the best. Take your time. As long as you meet the time requirement of getting 3 stars, it should be fine. So for the first half, the recommended teams, at least from an F2P low spender investment standpoint, Permafreeze with Venti or Kazuha would be really good, whether you be using Shenhe or Rosario Kea, it doesn't really matter. Aggravate is really good for overall for the first half of floor 12. Virgin should be usable. Mostly any kind of teams would work in the first half as long as you have some degree of CC with like Kazuha, Venti or Sucrose for the crowd control. If you don't, just use the strategy to get them all at the same time. I've even tried something like a D-loop forward melt with like some F2P characters like Sucrose, Rosaria and such, and it does work pretty fine. So the second half is quite tough because whether you run Virgin or Reverse Melt or like Mono Pyro or like a Vaporize with a Dendro character or whatnot, it is quite difficult to deal with because they are going to stun you endlessly, those heralds especially, and you might get one-shotted. So my overall advice for Chamber 1 is to do two things. Just run two different teams or two different set of teams where you have one team tackling the 12th one overall, and then you have a second team you run afterwards to focus on Chamber 2 and Chamber 3. So, because I can't really find a really good, comfortable team to take care of it regardless of what level of investment we have. So, that aside, let's move on to Chamber 2. Chamber 2 is arguably the easiest one, with the first half being the Terror Shroom. Doesn't matter what element you use. I don't recommend using maybe a Spread team or Nilo Bloom team because it does have an extremely high amount of Dendro resistance. And any Electro-based teams should work really well here because you can get it to this activation state, which it will do one of the 3 moves. And then once it does its moves, it will get stunned with basically 0% resistance of every element except for Dendro with 55. And the only other advice I have is that if it was to get charged, like if it was to enter the activation stage and it starts doing like a Rhino charge, what you want to do is you want to dodge the first charge, get close to it, and then you want to go to the nearest adjacent corner so that the second charge finishes faster, and that gives you more window to do more damage. Overall, good teams here. Once again, Aggravate because it consists of Electro. You can use Spread, but Spread is weaker. To be honest, most teams will work really well here, except for maybe Perma Freeze because that was a pain. I tried that, it was not fun. But I think as long as you can clear him within like 1.5 minutes, even 2 minutes, it should be fine depending on the level of investment for your second team. So the second chamber, we have the annoying Thunder Manifestation. Generally avoid using Circle Impact teams where your character's abilities has a fixed position or radius like Albedo. Albedo is not so bad, but something like Rosaria Burst would really suck. Or like Bennett Burst. And yeah, I would say range attack, single target DPS is really good. It does take a while to enter the Enraged Spin to Win state, so you can probably take some time to do like a lot of damage to chunk out its health a little bit. But there is one pattern, like kind of like a fixed-ish pattern that I discovered from this half, where once it enters the Enraged state, it will roar, and then it will summon the 2 Thunder Walls that collapse on you. You can easily dash that by iframing to the side. And then afterwards, it will blink away and it will do like this spinning or spin to win move. It will generally do it twice. And after it does it twice, it will blink away and it will either spin to win again or it will summon the homing Thunder Cage, which follows you, really annoying. And then afterwards, it probably either does like a Lightning Strike, Carpet Bomb, or anything past this point is completely random. But the first few moves seem to be relatively fixed if you are near it. So the interesting thing about his spin to win move is that certain abilities, or if you have a shield like a Zhongli shield, if you were to stand next to it as the manifestation is about to do the spin attack, and if you wanted to not get staggered, you can actually use your own hitbox to prevent him from moving any further. Things like Shengling's Elemental Burst, Toma Burst, maybe Sing Chu with the double E, or just have a Zhongli shield and just stand in front of him. And it wouldn't really spin too far. Yoimiya, Hu Tao would be great. Any range DPS or any DPS that doesn't rely too much on burst would be fine. And yeah, don't use Electro this half please because it doesn't take Electro damage. And then moving on to the hardest one, we have the Chamber 3. For the first half, we have the 2 Dendro Tigers and then we have the 2 Hydro Crocodiles, of which they'll spawn in Wave 1 and Wave 2. And the positions will be fixed. To be honest, this is probably the hardest one. There's very little tips I can really give aside from maybe the basic mechanics that the creatures have. So the Crocodile doesn't actually move that much, and you don't really want to be too far from it because its range attacks is really annoying. Like it charges up like its horns and shoots these water blades, which is really, really annoying. The Tiger, on the other hand, will always go towards you because it's highly aggressive, but it's also the one that will be mostly responsible for getting you killed, so you do want to pay a lot of attention to the Tiger while not taking your eyes away from the Alligator. Other than that, the only important mechanic about these Consecrated Beasts is the Phagocytic phase, where they do a special move, and then after they do the special move, they'll spawn this energy block, and then if you hit it with the right element, or with any elemental attacks, you'll obtain this Phagocytic thing. You'll enter a Phagocytic state, and then if you hit them, within like a few seconds, they'll lose 15% of the HP and lose a whole lot of resistance, and they'll be stunned for like, I think 6 to 8 seconds, I don't know the exact duration. So for the Tiger, basically what it does is that it stares at you, moves backwards, and then it will slowly like vanish. And then after like a second or so, it will jump down on you, move backwards, and then call like a grass spear wave thing. And then after that, the Dendro Phagocytic block will spawn. For the Crococdile, it will stand still, it will start glowing, and then it will roar. And what happens is that it's going to try to summon like this water explosion at your current location, where there are 2 waves. The first one will be the big circle, the inner ring, and then there'll be another attack on the outer ring. And then obviously you'll spawn the water block. So generally, that's all there really is. Unless you have some sort of shield, you do need quite a high amount of skill and a really high damage ceiling. So far from what I have tried, from all the teams that I've tried, I think Beidou is really amazing for this stuff, having damage reduction, her damage scales against really well against 2 enemies, and the parry. Parry does help you tank a little bit. Also, you do need a healer or a really strong shielder if you want to stay alive, if you can't be bothered to learn their attack patterns. Other than that, that's not really much advice I can say. Just get good, learn its attack patterns, retry a lot of times, and if you can't be bothered, it's okay to not do the 3rd chamber. It's a mod fest, it's not good. So good teams aggravate, obviously. Spread will work pretty well. Thermal freeze, preferably with Kazuha. If you use Venti at an F2P or low spender investment, I couldn't really find a way to make it work well. It will still take like 2 minutes, so it's not really all that great. So the first half, if you have a well-built team, at best you can probably clear in like, let's say 1 minute. Average would be 1 minute 30. At my level, I've tried different teams, and so far 1 minute 45 to 2 minutes is the best time, but preferably 1:45. And then we move on to the second half. So the second half, we have the Inquisitor's Baptist, which is once again an elemental check and maybe a slight DPS check. So what it does is that it'll spawn with a short, like, high resistance mode. And this is where you want to trigger your Sacrificial of Favonius procs to like pre-funnel all your bursts. And then the shield order that it will deploy is Cryo into Hydro into Pyro. And then once you break all 3 shields, obviously if you break 1 shield, he'll enter like maybe 5 to 6 seconds of being stunned. But once you break all 3 shields, the duration will roughly be doubled and you can do most of your damage over there. The only other note is that the Baptist only has 1.5 million HP, which I would think it's quite low compared to all the previous bosses that we've seen before, and he doesn't really do that much damage. All his attacks are very slow, very predictable, so there's no issues there. In terms of really good teams, Burgeon is really... it works. Reverse Melt, to be honest, any other team would work here as long as you bring the right elements and you can break the shield. Even if you were to run like Ito Mono Geo, I think that will work well, but you really have to like maximize your rotations, make sure you save your bursts and certain abilities for the right shields so that you can break them really fast and still gain enough energy to consistently perform your rotation. So honestly, yeah, the overall tip that I can really give is that just bring 2 sets of teams. I couldn't really find... well, I do have like a comfy team. Maybe I'll upload like the run for that, but even at my level of investment, it's still cutting it close. So this Abyss is really... it's just really skill check, investment check, and also an elemental check all at the same time. To be honest, if the Consecrated Beast, if you only had 2 Consecrated Beasts on the first half, I'm sure people would mold a little bit less than what we have right now. I think that goes for the guide. I will try to upload a bunch of videos once this guide video is out and done and dusted. I'll try to upload different runs to show you guys how well, at my level of investment, can you clear the Abyss and how much stars you can get. I'll try to upload the best runs after retrying like 3 billion times, but we'll see when that happens, right? Hopefully you find the guide helpful. There are a lot of different teams out there that you can try, but it's really just an investment check. If you can't get like 30 stars, or if you can't get 36 stars, you can settle for 33. If you can't get 33, just settle for 30. I think this Abyss being hard, there's just too much odds, walls, or like checks on stacked on top of each other. So to be honest, just wait for 3.8. I'm gonna bet the 3.8 Abyss is gonna be way easier than what we have right now, so maybe you can try your luck there. But until then, best of luck for all of you. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like. If you want to stick around for more content and more Abyss content and such, subscribe and stuff. I'm still working on a lot of things with Twitch and YouTube, so that's why the upload schedule has been a little bit slow, aside from IRL stuff. But yeah, anyways, I hope you guys found this guide helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Maybe when I actually upload the Abyss run. Alright, see ya.